The news broke Friday that a public worker union is now the #1 donor to campaign war chests this year. Take a look at this. Unions are spending almost $100 million more than private business in this year's elections. Joining the company now is Mark Mix. He is the president of the National Right to Work Foundation. Mark, I want to throw one more number at you, and that's the contribution, these campaign spending of the AFCME, which is the State Workers Union. That came in at $87 million, given essentially to the Democrats. My point in raising that number is, I think that they are trying to buy a state bailout. I think the unions, the state worker unions, have a huge interest in the federal government bailing out various states, California in particular. I think this is part of the story. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right, Stuart, because it was $160 billion that was included in this last bailout bill that went to save the states from dealing with very significant issues in their financial structures. We are coming to a point where we're going to see just how devastating this union monopoly power has been at the state level. And without that bailout, they're in some real trouble.
But is there an element of desperation here from the unions? Because they're spending some very, very serious money here. Some of them are going into debt to finance this campaign in November, just 8 days' time. They're desperate, aren't they?
Well, I think so, and they understand it for good reason. You know, this is nothing new, though, Stuart. Organized labor has been one of the biggest players in the political marketplace over the last couple of decades. Frankly, you know, 3 unions, the AFSCME union, which you mentioned, the SEIU, and the NEA, have already admitted they're spending $171 million in this election cycle. That doesn't include their PAC contributions, which are hard dollar contributions, which are reportable. This other stuff is money coming right out of the general treasury used for politics, and it's real big money.
Now, there's nothing illegal here. I mean, there's nothing concealed, there's nothing illegal, there's a perfectly acceptable thing, but they're spending money big time. I mean, again, I have to go back to that point. There is absolutely nothing illegal or even immoral about this. It's just pure naked... Wait a minute. Charles is...
Well,
hold on, I've got Charles in the studio
Thanks,
with me.
Charles.
He just raised an issue there.
Because they get their money from taxes on the public. And most of them are making twice as much as their private counterpart. You know, in other words, if I'm a plumber for the government, I make twice as much as the person who's actually paying my salary. And I'm paying off the Democrats to keep this policy in place. There's some morality in
Okay, not immoral. What say you, Mark?
Well, certainly, Charles's point is well taken, but the more important point from the morality standpoint is that organized labor can compel workers to pay them as a condition of their employment these dollars that they're now using for politics. They say they don't spend money on politics, but voter registration drives, get out the vote efforts, communications with so-called union members across the country add up to big money, and there are workers that oppose this agenda, that oppose the candidates they're supporting and the issues they're supporting, but yet they're compelled to pay as a condition of their employment. Other contributions in the political marketplace are voluntary. These, you can make the case that they're not, and we do.
In the lame duck session, if the Republicans win big, in the lame duck session, do you think that the Democrats will come back and press for card check in the lame duck session?
Well, I think what I'll do is quote Richard Trumka, the president of the AFL. He said, stay tuned. That's what he said. And Tom Harkin, the manager of this bill, the senator from Iowa, says that he thinks something may happen in the card check, on the card check issue in the lame duck. But let's believe this. I think the American people are going to speak loudly to this president and to this Congress about what they've been up to. And I think there'll be politicians that'll be running for the tall grass after Tuesday of next week.
Mark Mix, thank you very much indeed for joining us, sir. Always appreciated. Thank you, Mark.